Beat.
Well, John, it's topic time. Here we
right,
go.
let's do it.
We're going to talk about spawning sheepshead.
I'm gonna grab something.
You're going to go grab something here real quick. John, you're going to leave me stranded here talking about sheepshead.
I just want to show something.
You got to show something a little bit different. So what we want to do is we're going to talk about the equipment that we use, the setups that we use, and the bait that we use. And essentially, sheepshead this time of year, usually January, February, and March, these sheepshead, the adults will head offshore a little bit to rock piles, wrecks, ledges, and they'll go out there and spawn. It's a good time to, if you love sheepshead, to get out there, and get on some. Now John's putting together. He forgot to bring his
I meant to bring mine, but I ran behind at work. So
now what John and I basically use is basically going to be the same thing we use pole-wise, give or take. John's got a different example of it here, but we're using our inshore, equipment. We're still using light tackle. We're using what we use to catch trout, reds, snook. We're not going heavy pole, anything to that effect. John, for hogfish, and I do believe the sheepshead, prefers a bait cast setup. Now, tell him why you like this.
Okay, so when you go offshore and you're fishing the bottom, what do you use? A conventional reel.
Maybe you do.
Well, a lot of people do. So going from conventional to spinning rod is something that hasn't really been done that much. I would say 70% people use a conventional and 30% use a spinning rod. Me and Eric, we're spinning rod guys. We don't use much conventional anymore because the spinning rods have come a long way. So now I'm going to show you something that will improve, I promise, your catch ratio of bottom fish. So this now, okay, so what I use is I use a Abu Garcia reel, and I use a custom-made spiral-wrapped rod. Now, it's the same as this Bull Bay rod right here. This is the setup, so this is what you're seeing, except I use what I use. So this right here at Jim's is a lose. I would really probably like to buy this because this is smooth as butter, a lot better than what I'm using.
Butter.
But this combo right here, if you put 15-pound braid on here, which will give you plenty of line, and run 30-pound fluorocarbon, that is a spectacular setup. You can use a knocker rig on this. You can use, which Eric has right here. We'll talk about that in a second. And then we have a drop rig you can use on this right here because, again, you're just in 30 foot of water where these spawning fish are, or 15 to 20, 30 foot of water, you're just pushing the button, dropping the line straight down. So when you do this rod and you hold it, your finger feels every little bite on this right here because your thumb's already there. You don't have to worry about closing the bail. That's something you don't have to worry about. You're just dropping, pushing the button, drop it straight to the bottom, clicking it, and you're good to go. This feels everything from a hogfish to a mangrove to a sheephead. It will land the biggest sheephead. I've caught 24-inch sheephead with Eric using this setup. I don't say I always catch the biggest fish with them, but I'm on the big fish. Me and Eric catch the big. I'm not bragging, but that's just the way it is. Now, is it because of my combo? Yes, I do believe it is. It's just I have a spiral wrap which feels the bite just like a spinning pole, but I have this which is cranking those fish up, which gives me plenty of drag. And I'm telling you, get one, try one, you'll be amazed.
Yeah. They're like I said, I've tried it as well, and I do. I like it. It's just I always seem to forget to because I have one.
Yeah, you forget to bring it.
I have one, and that's so that works. Now, sheepshead, for those aren't in the know that don't really fish for sheepshead much, it's a very delicate bite. 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be something that is just all of a sudden that fish is there and he runs off with it.
They'll grab it and hold it.
They will grab it and hold it, or if you start to feel the slightest little peck, and again, it'll be slight.
It's like
you've got to have the patience of Job because they're not to the hook yet.
Yep, they're
just pecking, and eventually what I do and I don't know if you do the same thing as well, but my technique is to, when I feel that peck, to just ever so slightly and very slowly start just lifting the tip of my rod.
Yep, raise up.
And if I feel more tap, tap, I just kind of keep it right there. Ever so slowly continuing to come up, very, very slow. And when I finally feel some weight, that's when I lay into it. Set that hook.
You've got to set the hook.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
These fish can break hooks.
I got some chompers.
When you get a broken hook on a sheephead, more than likely that's a 22 to 25 inch fish.
Yeah.
They will tear that hook a new one. And I mean, I've seen top quality hooks break in half.
Oh, yeah.
And if you stop and you think about a fish can do that, think about what you would have caught had you landed that fish. So number one, you need to use strong, stout hooks. B, number two, you need to find the hook that makes you feel more comfortable, that in your head says, this is the hook that's going to work.
Yeah.
We're going to show you a few examples here in a second. Jig heads, they do work. A lot of people use jig heads. A lot of people use hog balls. A lot of people use a knocker rig. It's all in the preference of what you want and how you can feel that fish.
Sure.
So go ahead and show them the rigs you're using.
So equipment-wise, just to recap, the reason why we're using inshore stuff, lighter tackle,
is to feel it.
If you've got that big, ugly stick that's this wide at the base, you're not going to feel it. It's not sensitive enough to... sure, you could put that rod over the side and put it in the rod holder, and if you see it bend over, okay, you lucked out. Yeah. But like I said, the bite on sheepshead,
it's delicate.
It's very delicate.
Yep.
Very similar to a hogfish.
They don't call them a convict for nothing. No. That's because they're stealing your bait.
There we go. So again, to recap, we're using inshore spinning rods and your conventional bait caster setup. Now, we talked about a knocker rig. Now, a lot of people, what's a knocker rig? Now, again, this is for example only.
Yeah,
we don't fish this size hook, but imagine the yellow right here, and this is your fluorocarbon. A knocker rig is just a egg sinker sitting on top of a hook. And again, this is exaggerated. This is a large sinker. This is a large hook just for presentation. You'll drop that to the bottom. You can let that sit on the bottom. You can lift it off the bottom just a little bit, but what you want to do is you want to be in contact with that line so you can feel that bite. 9 times out of 10, John, I think you're using a knocker rig when we go.
9 times out of 10, I use a knocker rig. I have started to break out a little bit of my comfort zone. I'm just comfortable with that. Again, like I said, fishing is
well, it works.
60%.
It works.
60% mental and 100% physical. Whatever that adds up to.
Now, one of the ways that I prefer to do it is the drop rig, and a lot of people call this a chicken rig, or it's more of a commercial offside. So you would tie your fluorocarbon to your braid. You tie a loop knot up here, and you run your hook through that. So your hook's just kind of here dangling, and then you've got a bank weight sinker, here at the bottom that you attach. And what that does is that weight sits on the bottom, and now your shrimp, or whatever you're using for bait, it's just up here, right off the bottom, and you can kind of feel that really well as well. So that
guides use this technique a lot, so they don't have to keep retying.
Well, well, that too.
That's one of the reasons why. But it's a technique that works. So, I mean, again, sheephead, you have to figure out.
No.
They circle.
The benefit of that rig is you could drop that to the bottom, and if it gets caught in between some rocks, you can generally get that out. If you get that into heavy structure, you're going to be stuck just like you were any other setup. Now, another setup, and you talked about it earlier, is the jig head method. And when you've got a lot of current, what we're doing, and this is a Jim's jig. We talked about this jig a couple episodes ago with this is the new style with the V-lock. But you could take and arm your shrimp with bait and throw it ahead of the boat, let it sink in that current, and it's going to bounce on the bottom.
Yep, it's a natural descent.
Yep. And it's going to bounce as far as you give it that line. Once you click and stop and hold that line,
that's it.
Current's going to bring it back up to the top, unless you're using a heavier one. Now, this is something Jim's jig is in the process of developing, and we're testing this out, as well. But this is a heavier weight set on that same size hook, and I think this is going to work out really well for us. But these are fresh off the press. It's still hot.
So look at this design, guys. Yep. You see the width of that jig head? this hook stays up and this jig head rolls side to side, but it doesn't flip itself over like this. It stays like this to keep this out of the rocks. That's to help that right there. And this new V-lock system, when it hooks, it holds. But this is going to be new. Eric's fixing to try these. We're doing a lot more testing on some of this stuff, and it's really working out real well so far. So,
Yeah. So Laura said that's a New Jersey fluke setup. All right.
all right. See, so it works in different places. You know, everybody calls it something different, but it's good to hear that because fish, we're smarter than fish, obviously.
If you say so.
So we just have to outsmart those fish and to put them in our boat. So it just depends on what you feel good and comfortable with, and that's what will work for you.
Well, I could tell you.
Now, bait.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that.
We got to get into some bait.
Yep. Let me find my. There we go. So I went out Monday. Went out, waited for it to warm up a little bit, and I think it was a balmy
High noon.
It was a balmy 50-something at the time, and we went out, and I dropped over the side a knocker rig and a drop rig. And I just wasn't getting any bites. And until I used the jig technique, throwing it, that's when I started to get the bites. And if you look here, I kind of documented some of the fish that, were caught that day. And all of the fish that I caught that day were on the jig head setup.
See, that's, and you had started talking to me about using the dropper rig.
Yep. And, well, like I said, the dropper rig and the knocker rig, I think, lost shrimp eventually in the current there.
But not because of the sheephead.
I don't know if that was because that was such a cold drop and they were just
lethargic.
I guess. I can't justify, but having a different technique
made it work.
Generated, bites, and I was able to catch some fish.
You used the mental part of your brain on them.
There we go. Now, that particular day you mentioned bait.
Yep.
That particular day I had shrimp.
That's it. One choice.
Now, shrimp, 99.9% of the time you'll catch more
species than you could imagine.
Yeah, you'll catch your sheep's head, you'll catch your grunts, the hogs, everything that's there.
Sea bass, grouper.
But some days
they don't want shrimp.
You want something a little bit different.
That's right.
Now, like I said, shrimp is the easy go-to. Every bait shop normally has it. Captain's Cove is really good about keeping them in stock. And obviously we're inside Captain's Cove. But get you some shrimp. Have plenty of shrimp. Now, you got to think backwards a little bit because when you're fishing inshore for reds or trout or whatever, you want that big shrimp. You want the biggest shrimp you can get for those fish. These sheep's head, if you put a big shrimp on there,
he's just going to nibble it off.
Your shrimp will get pulled off before he ever finds the hook. So if I get a big shrimp, I break it in half and I put half. I put half on there, or the smaller shrimp. So for sheep's head, you're looking for smaller shrimp.
Yeah, you don't want. So you've got to remember that their mouth is full of teeth, and their mouth is not that big. Now, even a sheephead that's 20-something inches long still has a small mouth with a bunch of teeth in it. So if you get a sheephead that comes up there and starts eating on a shrimp this big, he nibble. And then by then the shrimp falls off or he's gone and he's got your bait. But if you use a half a shrimp or a small piece, boom, you get that hit, you get that strike. More than likely that hook might be turning perfectly in his mouth and you're good to go and you've got the fish.
Now if you can't get, or you got shrimp and you want an alternative.
There's a couple, and I'm going to give them one new one. I've got a new one.
Oh, do you now?
Oh,
all righty.
This is new.
So the fiddler crab, which is prevalent here on the West Coast, especially over on the East Coast, but they are here. Lots of bait shops carry them on the East Coast, but over here there's only a handful of them. So if you can find a bait shop that has them, that's good. The thing about it is, John, they're high.
They are.
They're high.
So you used to be able to buy a whole box of fiddlers and have them shipped to your house, and you could almost keep them alive and put them in some sand at your house, and you could make your own little bed of them. Yeah. So what did you say? How do you catch these things on the road? You dig a hole and put a bucket in the ground?
Well, we're going to get to that.
We're going to get to that?
Yeah, but you just go right ahead.
Well,
you just go right ahead.
I didn't know. Okay, so go ahead with that.
Now, so if you can't buy them or they're too high, whatever the case might be, if you're walking along the edges of the water, grassy, whatever the case might be, and you see these little holes in the ground,
Is that snakes?
That's not snakes.
Oh, whew, thank goodness, because I hate snakes.
When you see that, or you just see the fiddlers on the ground
Running around?
they're generally heading for those
Yep.
holes. So, one, if you see those holes, a good way of getting them, and it's not very proficient because it's slow, but take a little hand shovel, like a little garden shovel or whatever.
Dig them up.
And where they went in that hole, you just basically take that hand shovel. They're going to go in the ground about 3 or 4 inches. Stick it in there, pry them out, put them, get them out, put them in your bucket. You've
So
got
you're
'em.
in their house.
So yeah, oh yeah, you're taking.
Welcome
you're gonna
to
dig,
my house.
You're going to dig them right out of the ground.
Well, that's not very nice.
Well, it's not, but they're going on a hook, so that's not
okay.
hitting nice.
Okay, just checking. Just checking if they had feelings too.
There you go. An ulterior method is if you know that there are fiddler crabs in that area, you take said bucket,
Nice.
and this is almost perfect size.
That is perfect.
But you're going to dig a hole in that area, and you're going to bury it flush. You got to throw some shrimp in there, and you're going to walk away.
Oh wow.
And you can put out 2 or 3 of these. Doesn't even have to be a bucket. If you've got a solo cup, red solo cup, you can put these in the
I
ground.
fill you up
There you go.
with crabs.
And you're going to put shrimp in it. You're going to bait them. And
so
you're going to
baiting
wait
'em?
20, 30 minutes, and you're going to go back and check them.
That's all it takes?
And you should have fiddler crabs in the buckets. So
Wow.
that's a little bit.
I didn't know it was that fast. I thought this was like a day you had to leave it out there and come back and get them.
Now, I've seen all kind of videos where these guys are herding them using PVC, and they herd them into a bucket. But in the wintertime, especially in our area,
They're not gonna run that far.
they're not that open on the flats. I mean, they're staying close to those holes. That is a great method, and I encourage you to research, herding or trapping, fiddler crabs.
I heard you can
But
find anything on YouTube.
you can.
Yeah, even us.
You find us on the YouTubes.
On that YouTube.
But that works.
All right,
now,
so I got,
take
I got
said
another bait.
Yeah, well, we got one more bait before we get
Oh,
to your
do we?
special
We
bait.
got a new one.
You
Okay.
you can't help yourself, can you?
Can't wait till you hear this. You're gonna. This is unbelievable.
So with the fiddler crab, basically just take your hook, and we'll just use, just happen to have this.
Get that thing away from me.
Yep. Come up through the bottom center, come out the top, and be very gentle. Sometimes you got to wiggle the hook a little bit so it'll come through, because those crabs are very fragile. And then he should still be very much alive. Drop him in the water, go to town. Now, my go-to, if you could get to them, and this is a little bit harder to get, but if you could get to them, this is what you need to get right here. Let's see if we can get to it. We can find it. Here we go. And that's the old mud crab.
They like them mud crabs.
Now, the mud crab, I have huge success on the mud crab, and the mud crab itself does a very good job of pretty much only catching sheep's head when you're in that area. And that works out really well for me.
Logfish will hit those too, by the way.
Yep. Now, what you need to do with those, or how you find those, walk along the shoreline and turn rocks over. And they're going to be under those rocks.
Wear some gloves.
Very much
In
so.
our area,
Wear gloves.
wear gloves.
Our oysters and rocks
Will
and
cut
stuff.
you and yucky.
And they got bacteria.
Oh,
on
yeah.
them.
You don't want that.
So wear some gloves, but
Yep.
turn your rocks over, turn the oysters over, and they'll be there. Get them, put them in a bucket. Now, whereas a fiddler crab has that big old claw, the male does. They'll pinch you, and it's no big deal. It doesn't. I mean, it feels like a tiny pinch.
Bite them.
These mud crabs, they
Get outta
bite
here.
you. It draw blood.
Yep. It's
So
that
you
word
wanna be
before.
careful
It's
with
that
them.
word before ant.
Yep.
But we're not allowed to say it.
But that
Bite them.
Yep, that mud crab, that's the ticket. That's so, if I ever, have the alternative bait, that's
Mud
generally
crabs is
what
it?
I'm looking for.
Well, you're fixing
Yep.
to have a new one. You
So
ain't
here
gonna
we go,
believe
John.
this.
Are
you ready?
You've been very patient, John.
I've been patient.
What's the new one?
All right, so check this out, guys. So has anybody ever had cedar key clams to eat?
I'm
The
sure
little
that they have.
neck clams.
Yeah,
Well, sheephead eat oysters, don't they?
they do.
Sheephead also eat clams.
They do.
So if you take and you get your clams, now you can preserve these clams with salt to make them stronger, and you can get 2 baits per clam. You just cut them in half, you salt them, put them in the bag, they'll stay. You have to clean the clams just like anything else, but you will be shocked at how much a sheephead will eat a cedar key clam. You've heard it right here. I don't know if anybody else knows, but yeehaw.
where are you getting said clams? Are you getting them to eat, or you're
no,
getting
no,
them,
yeah, just eat edible clams. Just a bag. You get a big bag. You don't need the jumbos, none of the mediums, just the smalls.
Yeah.
And I think there's 100 to a bag. It's $20.
Cool.
100 to a bag.
Yeah.
You can get 2 baits per. So that's 200 baits.
And then you're gonna salt them up. You're gonna brine them. So
that's
they get
right.
A little bit
So
tougher.
it just makes them a little tougher.
Interesting.
Now, try it. And let me know.
Yeah.
You'll be shocked. There's something you don't know and you just learned right here.
Well, there you go.
We
well,
be tailing.
Well, maybe they did know. But question
Well, maybe
came up.
they did,
yeah.
but you'll be shocked.
Question come up. What size hook on the jig? These are 3s, so that's what we're looking at right there. That's a 3. So it's big enough. It's long enough to really get behind the rows of teeth.
You have to get them behind the teeth.
So it gets behind the rows of teeth, and then and with that V-lock, it grips and
it holds
them. So
Yeah.
that's what we're looking at right there. And again, same hook, just on this design right here, a little bit heavier weight, and that's going to hold the bottom a little bit longer to keep you in that zone. So same size hook, just heavier weight. Again, these aren't for sale yet, but maybe here in the near future,
we're testing. They're going to have their own special name.
There you go.
But I promise you, just check. You may have a bass outfit, but you want something probably saltwater just so it'll hold up better. But check into this right here. You'll be very happy that you did. If you just keep one on your boat and use it for just this type of fishing for this time of year, you'll be. I've got 3 poles set up like that. I'm very happy with them, and man, oh man, is it a fun fight on there.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, hopefully that kind of covers in a nutshell.
That pretty much covers. I mean, we just gave you. A lot of people didn't know about the mud crab. They knew about the fiddler. They knew about the shrimp, but the mud crab and the clam is you'll be surprised, and it works.
No. Well, there you go. Well, kudos to you, John. Here we go. I'll give you a little clapping action right there for the clam, because that is something new.
You had no idea.
I know that a lot of folks they do something, they call it an oyster bag or something like that, where they put some oyster in a bag and then they got a hook attached to it somehow. I'm not proficient. I'm not exactly sure, but that's a different method. And
they're crushers and they love it. I watched a guy in Cedar Key. He walked to the end of the pier. He took some oysters. He hit him with a hammer. He dropped them straight down on that pier. He took those oysters and he had brined them, and he had made them a little tougher. He took them and he had a bag like you were talking about. It was almost like pantyhose. And he took it and he made like a little twine on there, and he twined it together and he hooked that hook in there and he dropped that thing straight on that pier. I watched that guy catch 14 sheephead. You know how many bites I got? 0.
Because you were pier fishing.
Well, I caught fish. I caught other fish, but I couldn't catch a sheephead because I was intrigued. I had to do this, but I didn't have what he had, and I didn't understand what he was doing. So I sat back and I watched and I learned. And that guy put on a clinic for everybody out there, because they're like, oh, we're all doing the same thing, sitting there like, how you get? They're right there. We're looking at them. This guy's catching them all using an oyster. It was amazing.
Well, there we go, John. We're getting better on our time management. We only went over an hour just to touch this time.